When we talk about cultural diplomacy, I mean, for my country, it's a long tradition. We have invented the concept. We have today in the world, I guess, the largest cultural diplomacy network with cultural institutes, Alliance Française, schools, colleges, and so on. We have around 400 schools and colleges all around the world. For example, we have here Lycée Français of Brussels with 3,000 students. And it's more or less the same in all the capitals in the world. For us, it's a tradition, and I wanted to just to underline maybe three points, if you allow me, when we talk about cultural diplomacy for the French, what this concept means exactly. Three points. First of all, cultural diplomacy for us, it's above all a question of values, of universal values, like democracy, like freedom, like diversity. I give you just one example talking about democracy. We have a French Cultural Institute in Barcelona. It's a city I know very well because I have been general consul in Barcelona for some time. And we have this cultural institute in this city, big city of Spain. And this institute was the only democratic space which was left in Barcelona after the civil war in Spain. And there is a fantastic tradition and memory in Barcelona of the French Cultural Institute, not because of the French culture, not because of French literature, French movies and so on, but because the French Cultural Institute in Barcelona, after the civil war in Spain, was a space of freedom, a space where people of the city, politicians, could come and speak freely, express freely their opinion. This is what cultural diplomacy first is about: values and freedom. When we give a prize to an Iranian movie producer, first of all, of course, it's because this producer has made good films. But second, and more important, it's because we want to support and protect the freedom of cultural production, cultural expression in Iran. I hope you will never have to deal with Iranian authorities to produce a movie in Iran. Censorship, total lack of freedom of expression, and so on. So cultural diplomacy in this case, it's not about French literature, it's not about French artists, it's just to recognize, to support, to encourage, and sometimes to protect people involved in the cultural field when there is no space of freedom for cultural creation, creativity in their own country. This is what cultural diplomacy first is about: freedom. And the second point is diversity. Diversity. We are very engaged in the promotion of the French language. And the question is, why do the French are so engaged in this promotion? To protect their language, their national language? Yes, more or less. More or less. Because we feel, talking about language, we feel relatively comfortable because we have around 300 million people in the world speaking French. So it's not the concept of protection is not used in this case. We consider that the French-speaking community all around the world is sufficiently developed, and even more in African countries where the number of French speakers is increasing. So, why do we try to promote French language? Just because we consider that it's a condition of linguistic diversity. And the diversity is the first principle for freedom, once again. I mean, the day everyone on this planet will speak the same language, we will lose a large part of our freedom. When you haven't the possibility, the freedom to choose your own language, I mean, we can consider that we are not living any longer in a democratic world. So this is a big explanation of this fight we are leading everywhere in the world for language diversity. And of course, the first point to operate on this priority is to defend our own language. It's exactly what we are doing here in Brussels at the European Union. First of all, to claim the respect of the law, because there are treaties which protect all the languages of the European Union, and we want these treaties respected. And second, because we want diversity of languages in the European Union. I mean, if tomorrow all the Europeans speak the same language, we'll lose a part of our freedom. So when I speak about cultural diplomacy, first of all, I think we are talking about values, and this is very important, and this is the art of what we are doing all around the world for so many years. But the second point I would like to underline is solidarity. Solidarity is very important. So that's why we support, for example, an international organization which is very involved also in cultural diplomacy, which is the UNESCO. And this is very important. I remember France has been the first country, and I did it personally because I was spokesperson at that time in Paris. We denounced the destruction of religious monuments in Tombouctou by the terrorists who had taken control of this area in the North Mali. And we did it because it was a real heritage, historical treasures which had been destroyed by these people without any respect for the Muslim tradition. Centuries of Muslim traditions in Tombouctou. And they destroy sacred mosques just in a few days. And everyone at that time in the international community kept silent. Oh. And France was the first country to say, hey, there is something wrong in this situation. We condemn what's going on in Tombouctou. Tombouctou is so far from our respective countries. Who knows where is Tombouctou on the map? Who can show me very precisely where is Tombouctou on the map in Africa? Indifference, this is something which kills. So France is not indifferent to all these issues related to freedom and solidarity. And cultural diplomacy is solidarity because we include in our cultural international policy the aid to the development of third countries. It's part of our cultural diplomacy. And my country is the second largest donor of public aid for development in the world. And it's something which is very important because we are just a very little country of 65 million people. It's small, relatively, when we compare to other larger countries than mine. But we do it. We do it because we consider that this duty of solidarity is very important, is essential for our way to manage international relations. International relations, it's not only the promotion of its own national interest. It's not only the protection of our national interest, but it's also the capacity to help the rest of the world. And in this field, we are very engaged. For example, in Africa, we must know that in Africa today there are hundreds of millions of people who don't have access to drinkable water. And this is also cultural diplomacy for us, to go to Africa and to help this population. This is part of the game, if I can put it that way. And for us, it's very important to nationally be very engaged on the ground of solidarity. But we don't want to do it alone. So that's why we are fighting so much, so hard, in the frame of the European Union, to convince everyone that maybe Tanzania is very far from Europe, but in Tanzania we have people who need our help, need our solidarity. That's why we are fighting so hard in the context of the United Nations, in order to have a real international mobilization in terms of solidarity with a lot of underdeveloped countries. And this is part also of our conception of cultural diplomacy. And of course, because we are not naive, we consider that cultural diplomacy for us is also a possibility to promote our own national and cultural interest. For example, in the field of movies, we are France, once again, 65 million people only. We are the third movie producers in the world after the United States and India. We are the second larger exporter of movie in the world after the United States. We don't have Hollywood, of course, and we don't have the capacity to have Hollywood in France. But each year we make around 400-500 movies. Why? For a very simple reason. Because first of all, because movie was invented in France 1 century ago. But seriously speaking, because the state is helping the cine and movie sector, and we are not ashamed of it. On the contrary, we are very proud of it, because we have results, and because there is no today in the world only one country which produces all the movies the 6 or 7 billion inhabitants of the planet can see. Diversity, once again, but at the same time, protection of our economic interest, because when we are talking about the movie industry, we are talking about cultural creation, but we are also talking about thousands of jobs. And we are talking about millions of euros in incomes or exportation. And this is also very important. And we are not idealistic. Don't say, we produce movie because we like culture. Yes, we like culture, but we like also to earn money. And this is also important. This is also important because it's a very sensitive and a very important sector of our national economy. And in a few days or week, we are going to open, when I say we, the European Union is going to open negotiation with the United States for a treaty of liberalization of trade, transatlantic trade. And we have asked not to discuss in this next negotiation about culture for two reasons. Because we consider that a book, a movie, a painting, it's not a good as another good. A movie is not a car. A book is not a toothbrush. A painting is not a glass. First of all, this is very important, and we cannot put on the table any negotiation of cultural products because they have special nature, they have a special role and signification in our societies, and they cannot be considered, at least this is the view of my country, we cannot consider that the cultural goods, cultural productions are on the same level than the rest of what we can produce in other field of goods and services. This is very important, first of all. And second, we consider that if we put this sector, cultural sector, on the table of the negotiation, of course we will lose. We will lose because in front of us we have the fantastic machinery of cultural production of the United States. So it will be a very unbalanced negotiation. And sometimes when you are in a negotiation, of course you can be in a position of weakness. No problem with that. But this is something we cannot accept, talking about cultural fields. This is for us also very important. So that's why we have been mobilized during the last few months. We have disturbed everyone in the European Union. They were very irritated by the French attitude, insisting to put aside the cultural production because it was so easy not to have problems with the United States and to say, okay, we can negotiate. Everything is on the table. We don't make any difference between a car and a movie or between a book and an airplane. We are going to negotiate and we are going to liberalize the trade for all these goods. No way, this is not impossible. This is not possible. This is not at least the conception we have about culture. Because once again, and back to square one, once again, for us culture is diversity and it's freedom. If we lose both of them, we are dead. So this is the main message I wanted to share with you. Of course, I could remind that we have invented this cultural diplomacy since more than a century ago. That some countries like China, United States, and other countries have been discovering during the last 20 or 30 years the smart power, the public diplomacy and so on, but we are doing this in France for more than a century. I could also remind that we have the most important cultural network in the world and so on, but this is not very important. What is important is to discuss with you about the fundamental principle of cultural diplomacy. You have questions? Merci.